right, everyone. So today, for our third workshop, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Chelsy Pham, who is the director of our information and technology, and she will be presenting on leadership during the pandemic and beyond. I also want to thank everyone for attending this workshop. I see that we have Trustee Rivera here. Thank you, Ms. Rivera, for joining us and being so supportive, along with the IT team. Thank you for being here. And of course, to all our students who are here and supporting us. Thank you, thank you. With that being said, I will hand it over to Dr. Chelsy Pham. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Anna, for that warm welcome, and welcome Trustee Rivera, my colleagues, and all of our students here at Delta College. I'm very happy to be here with you today and to share some thoughts on leadership. So to begin our presentation today, I want to know, oops, I'm sorry. Go back, fun. What does leadership mean to you? So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and you can text or go to the website, text Chelsy Pham 202 to 37607. And then once you get this message, please go ahead and put in what does leadership mean to you. It could be a phrase, it could be a word. And I'll just give this like a minute or so, and it'll start showing up as we get responses that come in. Is anyone having trouble with that, or is it working okay?
I'm looking at the chat. No one's put anything yet, Chelsy.
Oh, okay. So let me see. I'm going to test it out too, just in case. 7, 6.
Somebody says has not opened poll yet, Chelsy.
Ah. Show responses. Joined by web, joined by text. Here we go. I'm sorry, we're having problems with this poll, so I'll go ahead and just move forward. Apologize for that. So what I want to know is, do we think we're in unprecedented times? There's so many, you know, I hear lots of news, media, and coverage saying this is unprecedented times that we're facing right now. You know, this is new, this is unique, but you know, when we think about it, is it really or is it not? I want to share this little short video, this little short clip with you.
Excuse me.
Right all the way down, make a left, and then you'll see where the entrance. You literally got to jump the crack right there. There's a scale and a warehouse and stuff right there. You'll be able to see it. Okay. All right.
I hate my life day.
So I come.
More like tea.
You want to say?
It comes 9 plus
Can somebody mute themselves because we're hearing some background noise, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So what do these examples have to do with leadership? Leadership is a lot of things to lots of different people, but what I want to talk to you about leadership today is leadership to me is about leading through life's changes. So that's what it really is about. Whether the life change might be you're going to a new school, you know, on the events that you saw, right? Leading through life's changes. We have floods, we have tsunamis, we've had nuclear disasters, you know, we've had severe weather. That picture you saw was from Texas where everything was frozen, you know, no water, no power for days and weeks at a time. And also right now we have the pandemic. You know, these are life changes. And of course, the pandemic is a huge life change, but everything in leadership is about leading people through that, leading yourself through it first, and then helping others lead through change. I want to show the second video about change.
Jack Welch once said, "Change before you have to." How true that is. Championship leaders understand that in order to remain relevant and competitive, they must foster a culture that embraces change. When you think about the brands that have been around for 100+ years, how they looked in the beginning is much different than how they look now. They changed. The brands they once competed with no longer exist. Why? They didn't change. Grace Hopper once said, "The most dangerous phrase in language is, 'We've always done it this way.' As the leader, you must relentlessly fight this mindset. Don't allow your team to focus on how things used to be, because used to be's don't make honey. Instead, focus on how things are gonna be. Gonna be's make honey. Gonna be's have a clear vision of the future and how they need to grow in order to become that better version of themselves. They understand constant growth requires constant change. Remember what John Maxwell once said, change is inevitable, growth is optional." Close your eyes and visualize what things will look like in 3 years. How will you need to evolve in order to meet that vision and be a front runner in your space when the time comes? What changes do you need to make? Start making those changes now. As the leader, you have the remote. If you don't like the channel you're on, nobody can change it but you. So stand up and change it. And don't be afraid of the naysayers. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Do what you feel is right, for you will be criticized anyways. Trust your instincts. Pursue your vision. Even if no one else sees it, just start the journey. The others will follow. And stay ready. New levels will bring new devils. But the higher you climb, the stronger you'll get. Take pride in being a professional problem solver as you rise. Remind your team that every change you make is an effort to get better. You don't change for the sake of changing. Like Jim Rohn said, life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. At the core behind every big change is a why, and that why is to get better.
I want to thank you and applaud you for attending today. You're here because you want to grow. And I want to share 3 leadership insights that I have with you. And you hear a lot about leadership and you hear about a lot what leaders should be and the model leader, but I don't want you to forget about yourself. You know, don't forget about developing yourself and your core, because as a leader, you need to be strong and you need to set goals for yourself. This doesn't mean you won't have bad days. We all have bad days. When you see this, you know, perfect image of a leader, it takes a lot of work to be that way. And so part of today is I want you to, you know, be able to set your goals and develop yourself. And so I want to give you these tips to help, hopefully it'll help you develop your goals for you to be the strong leader of tomorrow. So the first leadership tool I want to give you is a fundamental, and it's the ability to influence. As a leader, you have to have the ability to influence people, influence things, events, influence your goals, or influence the goals that were set forth for you, right? Like take Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, in August 28th of 1963, he was able to influence 250 people to come see his speech. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. Nobody scheduled a flash mob for his speech, but he was able to influence people to come and watch him speak. They didn't know what he was saying that day. They didn't know what the speech was about, but he was able to influence that type of crowd. He didn't hold any formal positions, but he had many followers. So that is the rank of like a true leader, when you get to the point where you're able to influence others like that. Another thing is leaders exhibit confidence and knowledge to set the vision and achieve goals. So you have to have confidence. The team that you're leading must have confidence in you. Your followers must have confidence in you to be able to trust in your vision and then achieve the goals that was set out. Either it might be set for you, or those might be your own goals. And I want you to take a moment to think that, have you been successful in getting people to follow you? And this can be in many different realms, right? When you're in college, as I was going through college, there's a lot of team assignments, right? And we always dread those team assignments, because you go into the team assignment and you're just like, oh, another team assignment, like, I'm going to end up doing other work. Or maybe, some of us pick up the pace and do everything, and you're going to expect a team member not to follow through, or someone not to be listening, or others not to show up. But think about times that you've been successful. And then also think about a situation where you wanted to influence someone to buy into an idea or a goal that was established for you. So just have that idea in your mind. It could be something, like you wanted to pursue or ask someone to go shopping with you, or, go on this hiking trip with you, or even, let's finish this class assignment or get this team meeting together so we can, get our grades done, get through this class. Well, was there any resistance? What was the source of the resistance? Did you try to think about what was their source of resistance, and how did you overcome that? How were you able to overcome the resistance? And we all know that influence requires a lot of effort. A lot of great leaders make it seem effortless, but it actually it takes a lot of effort to do that. And one thing I want everybody to remember is that influence through trust takes a lifetime to develop, but can be lost in a second. You can lose trust within seconds. And to rebuild that trust takes almost twice as long as you've been trying to initiate that trust in the first place. And leadership is the act of influencing outcomes. All leadership, is trying to get somewhere to achieve something. And that you have three possible outcomes that you can have. You have three possible outcomes of any kind of engagement or influence. The first one is resistance. So when you're trying to do something, you might get resistance. You might get naysayers. You might say people that flat out, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. Your second one you can get is compliance. People will do it, but not willingly. People might tell you they'll do it, but not really do it, right? So that's a sense of compliance. The third outcome you want is commitment. Commitment is your ultimate goal. You want to influence someone to the level that they're committed to doing that for you. They trust you, therefore they're committed, right? They're just not, in compliance. They're not just saying yes and then they'll do it just because you said yes, or they'll say yes and not even do anything. One of the tools I want to bring to you today is style diversity. We're not talking about clothing, but I did this just to see that you can see there's lots of style diversity, right? In different people's styles. People say that's a personality. People say, it's a different way of being. So being versed in style diversity is a very important part of leadership, because style diversity is actually people reading. So I know some of you took your DISC personality test. Just keep that with you. Know which letter that you fall mostly into. And having style diversity or having these categories We're not trying to put people in boxes because everybody scores differently in different areas. You could be strong in one, weak in the other. This is like kind of like their dominant trait. There's no wrong or right. There's no right or wrong box. Then you have to be this to be a leader. If you're this, you're not a leader. That's not true. It's just style diversity. You need to understand your own style so that you know how to interact with other people's styles. So effective leaders observe and identify behavior styles. So when you're in a group, you probably learned about groups and how groups form, and then they have this norming stage and the storming stage. So in those beginning stages, that's when you try to identify behavior styles. And what a leader is trying to do is to modify actions to match their intentions. So if you find that you're trying to reach a goal and you notice that a person is a certain style, then you try to modify yourself to try to fit in to achieve your goal. I'll tell you a little story. Through my, when I was in my previous organization, I had this really great mentor. And I was really young. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And I signed up for this mentorship program because I thought it was really cool. I got to meet, good leaders in the organization. And in one meeting, I sat with him and I got into an argument with whoever I was meeting with. I had a previous meeting, I was upset. I was trying to work on this project and that person just won't listen to me. And I'm like, I just don't like that person. I told my mentor, I did not like this person. And then he looked at me and he smiled and he said, you know what? In life, you're going to meet people that you get along with, you don't get along with. But what's the ultimate goal? You need to sit at the table and see, you guys are both there for the same reason. Obviously, that's why you met. So you just have to meet at that medium, like trying to achieve that goal and see how you can do that. And so, so I learned how to identify styles, people's styles, and then adapt to their styles. This means that you understand how to interact with others and then just adjust you to better connect with people. An example would be, if you're thinking about that scenario I talked about a moment ago, is, a team or a person, are you, is that person active? Are they fast paced? Are they assertive? Do they talk loudly? On the other side, is that person calm? Do they talk about a moderate pace? Are they more introverted, more thoughtful? All these fall into, categories of like, these personality categories. So you can be, more dominant, which means you're more direct, decisive. You can be influential, inspiring, interactive, interesting, steady. You're more stable, more quiet, supportive. Or it can be more compliant. You're cautious, careful, and you can see that in different spaces, people will react differently. Like that first example I gave of a really active, fast-paced person, they're assertive, they tend to speak louder. They probably fall into one of these two categories. They're probably more dominant or they're influential. On the other hand, you have the calmer, moderate speaker, more, a little more thoughtful, so they're more introverted. They're probably more of the compliant or the steady personality. So how do you approach these different personalities and how do you identify them, right? As part of your leadership toolkit, I want to share with you how to understand style and influence change. So for each of these styles, I want to talk about how we approach these different groups, how you give feedback and how you receive feedback. It's really important, especially how you receive feedback and give feedback, because that can easily make or break that trust relationship you have with somebody. So the D's are our leaders. They're self-leaders. They maintain focus. They're willing to speak out. They're our typical problem solvers. They like challenges and they accept risk. So how do you approach this type of person when you're trying to get an idea through? So when you speak to them, these are the words you want to use. Here's the goal. What's your solution? I need this by. Because they're very precise. They want to get to the point. if you're giving feedback to this person, get to the point, move quickly. Don't spend time on non-essentials, because that's when they're going to start, you know, kind of like turning you off, because they don't like to listen to a lot of small talk. Provide feedback immediately and show clear results. When you're receiving feedback from a D, you want to keep emotional responses to a minimum, because they don't really care for it, right? Know that they like to be in control, so you want to give them that, right? Understand they may be quick, tough, and direct, and try to provide an immediate response, because they don't like waiting. So that's what happens, you know, this is your interaction with a person that has a dominant personality type. Now the I is more of the influencer. These are your good communicators and your peacemakers. These people, you can probably think of someone who falls into these categories as you read these personalities, right? They seek to aspire, they, you know, motivate their goal, motivate the team, right? They're spontaneous. They have a good sense of humor. They're very accepting. So these are our I's. When approaching an I, it's very different than approaching a D. So in this one, you want to be more social. You want to say, let's talk about it more and show your excitement. You know, I'm excited about this, and let's just take care of this. This is a great way to do X, Y, Z. You know, you really want to be excited when you're speaking to an I, because that's what motivates them. When you're giving feedback, keep it simple. Don't overuse data. When you start showing them data, charts and stuff, they kind of like, you know, they kind of shut down, because that's not what they like. You want to allow more time for interaction. These are social people. They like the social aspect of it, and you'll get more connection by doing that. Focus more on emotions and feelings. Unlike the D personality, where they don't like any of that, the I's love that. And remain as positive as possible, because if you don't remain positive, you're going to bring them down too. So you want to remain positive when giving feedback to the I's. When you're receiving feedback from an I, be sociable and engaged. Don't react negatively, because that brings them down. Know that they might not focus on task and results. They might not seem like they're focusing, but they're probably a very committed person, but that might come across that way. And know that they like to talk a lot. They're social. So when you see an I, that's the kind of reaction you want to kind of deal with them with that. So for our S's, these are the relationship builders. They like to make people feel like they belong. They're very sincere. They're very patient. They're a team player, and they like stability. They're the voice in the ears of reason. You know, they like, they can see an easier way. They, you know, they all of us have common sense, but they have, you know, they're more stable. So they're thinking about it. They're realistic, even tempered, and they provide a lot of stability to the team. So when you're approaching someone in the S dominancy, you ask them, how do you think we should? How do you think we should do X, Y, Z, right? And can we discuss it further? And here's some more information about. That's kind of how you want to approach someone that has an S personality. With giving feedback, we know that their head nodding doesn't mean that they agree. So you can sit there and they can go like this, but they're actually just listening. They're not saying yes. So you have to pay attention to that. You want to slow down, and you want to provide sincere and detailed feedback. And you want to provide support and time to process. So they need the time to, they're more introverted, so they need time to process the information. And with S's, don't fail to deliver promises that you make. So they're very steady, so they need that stability, and they really need to, when you're committing to them, they're expecting that commitment. You want to be considerate, and then be aware that since they like stability, new ideas make them very uncomfortable. So the more so that you need to slow down and just, you know, try to talk them into it, or you listen to what they have to say. So for our last personality type is the C. So this is more the diplomat. They like consensus. They share risk and responsibility. They like to control details. They emphasize on quality, kind of like the mortal OCD type personality. They're analysts, so they like to analyze everything all the time. And they ask factual and, type of questions. So they're very careful. So when approaching a C, you want to, take time to think about it and let me know what questions you have. So let them analyze whatever you're trying to present to them. And then they like to get things beforehand. So, why don't I send you an email so you have time to look it over and then give them some alternatives. Here are some alternatives. So these are different ways you want to talk to someone who is a C. So giving feedback to someone who is in this compliant area is to provide detail in writing ahead of time if possible. Don't catch them off guard because they don't like being on the spot. Present feedback logically, like it has to be in some kind of logical order. Give them time to process and ask questions and know that they might just listen. It's not that they don't want to respond, but they need a little more time to listen to you. So when receiving feedback, be patient and respond with detailed facts and data. They like data, they like facts. Understand that criticism is often based on facts and not personal. And know that they're often economical with their words. They don't like small talk. They say what they have to, but otherwise they don't really talk about it. So, think about your DISC style and then think about how you interact with others and try to observe and find out other people's styles so you can adjust to them, especially when you're leading a group or a team or trying to get someone to do something to buy into your idea. This is a very useful tool. It's a very hard thing to learn, one of the skills of leadership, but it's very valuable once you kind of get the hang of it. So leaders learn to appreciate style differences and leverage them to achieve their goals. The third tool I wanted to offer and share with you is the idea of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to read and connect successfully to collaborate. And there's this really great quote that says, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Right? And that's a true statement because when you get to someone's emotions and feelings, they remember that. So it's a good quote to live by. So being in control of your emotions and to influence other people's emotions is called emotional intelligence. It's not being able just to control yours. It's understanding what the other person is feeling and also being able to facilitate that. The ability to lead is dependent on our ability to motivate others and to identify and focus on a common goal. And there's a direct connection with leadership and the environment and the ability to lead. I want to show you a short video now of a really good speaker. His name is Simon Sinek. He's one of my favorite speakers for leadership. And he's going to talk to you about an employee named Noah.
I'll tell you a true story. A few months ago, I stayed at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It is a wonderful hotel. And the reason it's a wonderful hotel is not because of the fancy beds. Any hotel can go and buy a fancy bed. The reason it's a wonderful hotel is because of the people who work there. If you walk past somebody at the Four Seasons and they say hello to you, you get the feeling that they actually wanted to say hello to you. It's not that somebody told them that you have to say hello to all the customers, say hello to all the guests, right? You actually feel that they care. Now, in their lobby, they have a coffee stand. And one afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah says, I love my job. And so I followed up. I said, what is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better. He said, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said something magical. He says, I also work at Caesar's palace. And at Caesar's palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong. He says, when I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck. He says, here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself. Same person, entirely different experience from the customer who will engage with Noah. So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying, we got to get the right people on the bus. I've got to fill my team. I've got to get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people. It's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's palace.
It's a very powerful video, and it's very unique to have, people always say sometimes it's a person, but leadership drives that, right? So all leaders have a common goal. We need to make sure that we're positive and that we are responsible for the creation of a positive environment, because that's what makes us leaders. So as you step into, being a leader in your classroom, being a leader at home, wherever you're being a leader at, you're responsible for creating that positive environment. And, that's not always possible. It's really difficult. When you get into a situation, we all get into the situations, right? Where we're losing our self-control. And what you want to do is want to try to pause. It's very hard to do. Try to pause and think like camera, right? You want to focus. Camera is context and environment. Look at the context in which you're situated in and look at the environment that you're in. You want to be aware of yourself and you want to be aware of others. Like, what are they thinking and feeling? What are you thinking and feeling? And what are the motivators and what are the drivers? What's your motivation? What's their motivation? Maybe you both have the same goal, but different ways of approaching it, right? Or, you're just not hearing each other out. So just step back. One of the really also great speakers is, I don't know if most of you watch Comedy Central, but I'm a big Trevor Noah fan. If you've ever watched him in a debate, he is a very powerful communicator. There's actually a study done, I'll send this link out to Shayla so she can share it. There's a study done, because it's too long to show here, but about him communicating, right? He gets into these heated debates with people, but you see how he brings it down. So that's very, very powerful. And I'll share that with Shayla so I can share it with you. But he's one person that if you just hear him speak, like during interviews and things like that, he's a very good communicator. And you see him do this. You see him practice these things. And it really boils down to leadership is you incorporated, right? It's you, right? You want to build yourself into, a leader. And think about, what are you trying to execute? Focus on what you do well. What does your team do well? What does your classmates do well? What does your family do well? What do your friends do well? And how do you maximize the skills of you and your team, right? So as a leader, you don't want to try to hire or find someone who's identical to you. You want someone that's opposite skills from you, because you know your weak points. And I always tell my team, that's not my superpower, right? I have my superpower, you have yours. That's why we work together as a team. But focus on what you can do and then understand how to influence and leverage other people. So influencing is about getting on board, getting people on board with your ideas. And this is only through strong communication and strong connection. And it's about understanding those personality types. There's lots of different, tests and different things and different ways people put people in categories. but basically it's to try to learn about the others and then try to adapt to that. When you see a leader, out there, leaders can command a room. And I don't mean that in like a dictatorship manner. I mean that when a leader walks in, they don't even have to hold a position. People turn to them and then they can facilitate the room perfectly. They understand perspective. They understand the team's message and support them. The thing is, you need to understand the communications styles of your own team, of your own coworkers, of your own family and friends. That way you can connect with them better. Don't assume that others are strong communicators, because maybe they're not. They have other strengths. Communication isn't the number one strength of everybody. And then don't put others on the spot, especially if you know they're weak in that, because you'll lose their trust when you do that. And when you as you go back, to your classes and to your livelihood, just think about what you do well and what are your challenges, because that helps you grow. And what can you do to maximize your influence skills? Leadership takes practice, a lot of practice over the years of practice. And even no matter how much you practice, your bad days will always have them. So don't think that a leader has to be perfect. There are days I go home, break down and cry too, so, everybody has their bad days. Don't take it too hard, and just take that as lesson learned, and you go back and then you try to play that scenario back and see how that could have been done better. I want to also share with you that once, you take practice in being aware, of that, is you really reach this thing called metacognition, which is the awareness and understandings of your own thought process and other people's thought processes. So once you can understand your own first, right? Understand yourself and try to understand others, and you do this on purpose, it's intentionally done, then you can kind of master that, that part of leadership. So we talked about, influencing, we talked about cell diversity, and we talked about emotional intelligence. The world right now is dealing with a massive change. None of us are, we're fully aware of the massive change. The pandemic came rather quickly. It impacts everyone, everywhere. And it's a lot. And as leaders, I know we turn to our leaders and what should we do? What should we do? Well, it's their first time this also, but they have to know how to deal with change. And that's what we're all doing, right? We were in person, now we're in Zoom. We all dealt with the change and we're all here. Some of us can adjust, better, faster. Some others can't adjust, and so we need to support them. There's a lot of things that are going on. There are many unknowns. Unknowns make us very, very uncomfortable. And I think that's the part that is the most difficult thing, is because there's so many unknowns. I don't know when I can go back to class. I don't know if I could forever take classes online. I don't know, what my future is going to be. I don't know what I would do when I grow up. I don't even know if those jobs that I'm thinking about are going to be there in the future. Change are happening so fast. I mean, mask, no mask, social distance, no social distance, lots of personal choices, so what do we need to do in these situations, right? What do we need to do to help us and help others? What we really need to do is focus on empathy. So empathy is understanding and being aware and being sensitive to experiences of other people. So empathy in leadership is very important. It's how you engage and trust in your team, your friends, your students, coworkers. I want to share another video with you about leadership and empathy.
Our mind is the weapon against the depletion of our soul. Our actions are the motivation that influences change. Our empathy can help us step outside our own inner world and experience someone else's. Empathy is the ability to understand the needs of others, to understand their struggles and their passion for a better outcome. It's important for us to realize that the story we tell our own minds is different than the story that plays out in the minds of others? Can we view others in a way that can inspire a better world, grounded by compassion? This change can only start with the shift of an individual's mindset, a willingness to choose others' needs ahead of the needs of our own. What is the talent that our soul is trying to share with the world? This piece of us that at one time made our lives feel complete. Our empathy can help us create this talent in a way that benefits the people that we share it with the most, and open our minds to a better way of life. Our soul's creativity molds our talents through the joy it brings others. Don't let your anger and doubt cripple your life's desires, but always remember that others are not the stepping stone to life's achievements. They are the inspiration to the purpose of our life's achievements. We sometimes find ourselves so wrapped up in the end result that we fail to see the effect it has on the people around us. Our self-awareness can help build the strength for future development. Empathy is an overlooked power that, if used correctly, can change the world. It's up to us as individuals to move forward with integrity and create principles that align with the journey that follows. Find a way to care for others around you and watch the difference you make.
Another leadership concept I want to share with you is being agile, being able to move quickly and easily. In leadership, especially now, especially with all these changes that are facing, everything that's coming with us, to us, is we need to combine empathy with being agile. With those two things, because there's so many changes happening to everybody. It's happening to you, it's happening to people who you work with, your friends, your neighbors, everything like that. If we don't practice that, then you'll lose the connection, kind of make yourself go crazy at times because there's so many things going on around the world. There's some quotes that I found that I really, really want to share with you that would drive this point home. And I hope we think about it. We can talk about them, in our discussion soon. The first one I want to share with you is ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because the water gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. A lot of us need to find things, find things that help you release that stress, that don't weigh you down. Throughout the pandemic, I'm sure many of you learned how to bake. Maybe you learned how to do different things, right? I learned how to make candles. I've never done that before. But find something that gets your mind off so you can take the water out as it comes into your boat, right? The second quote I want to share with you, that now every time I witness a strong person, I want to know, what dark did you conquer in your story? Because mountains do not rise without earthquakes. All of us go through, all of us have many stories of our lives that build us to who we are today. And those are struggles, but you can take struggles two different ways. You can have it take you down, or it can lift you up high. And that's a choice that you need to make, right? I have two quotes from Simon Sinek. This one is, the role of a leader is not to come up with all the great ideas. The role of a leader is to create an environment in which great ideas can happen. And this is the same situation where, when Simon talked about Noah and talked about Caesar's Palace versus the Four Seasons Hotel. The last quote I want to bring to you is that leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. I want to close and open up for questions with that.
So how we've done it before, Chelsy, is people have asked their questions in the chat, and then I kind of serve as like the moderator, just so it's not
okay. Thank you, Sheila.
At once. No worries. So if you want, I don't know if you mind stop. We'll put your information in the chat, but yeah, you can stop sharing. And those of you who would like to ask questions to Chelsy, I've taken an inventory of those who have already asked questions in the chat. So now's your opportunity to put your questions in the chat. But I just want to kick it off with one of these questions that I thought was pretty interesting that someone had asked, which was, and I thought, by the way, it was an amazing presentation, Chelsy. So thank you. I know, especially the DIS survey, a lot of students and staff in here were really interested in taking it. If you didn't take it, go ahead and take it so you can, it'll tie very well into what you have just shared. So one of the first questions that was asked is, how can we cultivate our ability to influence?
Yes, definitely. The ability to influence is learned, right? So, but it's taking time to learn about yourself first. What I've learned in leadership is that if you don't take care of you, so one of our vice president of instruction, Dr. Lisa Lawrence, and she had this really good line. She said, you have a lot of people on your list. Don't forget to put you on the list too, that you have to take care of yourself. Leadership is knowing yourself. Because if you're not stable, how are you supposed to lead the family, lead the team,
Right. If you don't take care of you first, you can't take care of anyone else. And I think that was one of our previous speakers says, our mayor, is it Kevin Lincoln? He was saying, make sure you put on your mask first before on the airplane before anyone else, because you're not going to be good to anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. So I like that you emphasize that. Another student had asked, does Delta College offer any kind of leadership programs or clubs? I guess I can answer that. Activities. And Anna can kind of chime in as well. But we do offer several clubs on campus if you are interested in getting involved in a club or starting a club. As a club officer, that's a great opportunity to advance your leadership skills as well as attending workshops like this, right? And in addition to being a part of student government, which is the Associated Students of Delta College, and doing internships, volunteer experiences, there's a wide array of opportunities and how you can get involved to really develop your leadership skills, if that's something that you're interested in. But as Chelsy had mentioned earlier, the mentoring is a really, really huge component to, I think, all of our leadership skills that we've been able to develop. So I'm glad that you had mentioned that. And again, previous speakers have mentioned that. So I'm glad that you emphasized that as well. So another question that we had was, how can a leader empower his or her group without feeling powerless themselves? Sometimes leaders want to make the connection, but connections are hard to create because of the role difference between those being led versus those who lead.
So can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Sia.
I'll break it down. We'll break it down in parts. It might be easier to do it that way. But the first part basically is, how can a leader empower his or her group without feeling powerless themselves?
So once you empower your group, that's actually, so their success is your success, right? And you, as a leader, you don't have all the superpowers. Your team has the superpower because they're the ones that make you who you are, right? When they do well, you do well. And what I've learned in leadership, and which is really hard, right? People say, I want to do everything because it's my, my ability. I want to show that I can do it. But actually, the more you let someone else do it, the more you grow, because your charge is to take care of them and make sure that they grow. Because I am very proud if any of my team members can go up and be the next director of IT. I actually encourage my assistant directors to do that, and because then you can move on and do something else. because there's something else that you want to do, that you want to grow too, right? So in order for you to grow, you have to have your staff grow and your team grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the best leaders are the ones who take a step back and allow their team to kind of fly and showcase their skills. So I do appreciate you.
Understand that those going to be mistakes. They won't do things the way you want them done, right? They won't do things because they're not you. But is it wrong? It's different, but it's not wrong. So, you know, there's many ways to bake a chocolate cake. I always say that, you know, because you could say, I want a chocolate cake, but if you ask 5 people to make you a chocolate cake, they'll all turn out different, right? At the end, your chocolate cake.
You still got chocolate cake at the end. That was a pretty good analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm jumping around with questions, everyone. I'm copying and pasting your questions. So it's going to go a little bit out of order, but one of the questions that someone just asked was, who is a leader that you looked up to growing up and why?
I looked up to Nelson Mandela. He's a worldwide known leader. And because one is because he is in a position of leadership, but that's not why I look up to him, is because worldwide he's known as a leader. Many people don't see that. And one of the qualities I liked about Nelson Mandela is one of the questions his son asked him is, in your tribal leadership, when you're doing those meetings, you know, how do you get the most out of it? And he always goes last, and he never agrees or disagrees, right? He'll say, you know, we need to talk about X, and he'll listen to all of his leaders talk, and then he'll give his opinion, right? Because one, everybody got to express their opinion, and two, he didn't disagree or agreed, and then he got to formulate his opinion from their opinions, because he might have had something in his mind, but after listening to the team, he can put all that together. And I think that he's one of my mentors, on top of Dalai Lama, of course, you know, one of my Zen mentors.
I love that. I think that is such a good strategy. And I hope everyone really heard what Chelsy said, like the power there is to listen to everyone in the room and then respond. You know, I think
because sometimes what happens, this is what happens, scenario one, right? You walk in, you're the leader, you've got your team together because you're going to talk about X. You're like, this is what we're going to do with X. But you just shut everybody down.
Yeah. And it doesn't promote a very positive or thoughts where people can share their thoughts, right? So it doesn't promote that type of environment. So I like that. Okay, I'm going to keep going because the questions are coming in fast. So thank you, everyone. All good questions. Okay, another question we got was, how can leadership be developed in a way that the staff feel valued as a positive part of the team to promote the success of the business and united without feeling less valued based on their personal ability to perform?
It's about involvement. I mean, you can get involved in big ways or little ways, but then you feel like you accomplished something, that you gave something, right? Being involved is a big part of growth. If you were never, people always say, well, I didn't want that person or something because they never did it. Well, how would they ever do it if you never let them do it, right? It's always that thing, you know, like this is my first deal in higher education. I came from the private industry, and they're always talking about, well, that person was never in higher ed. I'm like, if you were never given a chance to get in higher ed, how would you get the experience? You know, right. So whatever little it may be, you may be participating in building a nuclear power weapon or rocket or whatever, but as long as you get that little piece, you contributed something. It's like that story about the janitor at NASA, right? You know, they walk around, this guy walks around and, you know, he bumps into a guest and he's like, what are you doing? And the janitor replies, well, I'm sending someone to the moon. He's cleaning the floors. His contribution to sending people to the moon. Right. And the place needs to keep clean, right? Just like our people, our custodians here, they're helping our students succeed, you know, by doing every little thing is a contribution to something bigger.
Right. I think oftentimes, people forget the value in the parts that people play, you know, and the roles that we all play. And oftentimes people feel they're not valued, right? And so I think that might contribute to people feeling not as positive or not as motivated to be part of the team or do the work. So, but staying engaged is so important though. Like what you're saying, being engaged, showing up, and maintaining your realm of positivity is really, so I'm gonna move forward here because again, the questions are coming in. I see you all. Question that we had, which I thought was a good question. You have mentioned in your presentation about the importance of controlling your emotions, right? And having that self-control. And someone in the chat had asked, okay, how, if maybe that's an area that you struggle with, how do you control your emotions when something is really not right? And we've all struggled with this. So I really like that question. And what are some strategies that you can share that has worked for you, Chelsy?
So that is very, very difficult. It's actually learn it. Even if you learn it, like you keep practicing it over. There's lots of opportunities to practice. Let me tell you that. Every time you practice it, it gets easier. But what I do is when I get into that situation, is I try to think of something else. Like I take myself out of the situation. You know, I'm in this situation, it's getting heated. I know I'm getting upset. I can feel it. I can feel I'm getting upset, right? I know the other person's upset. They're getting defensive. And then so I just pause. I let them, they're still ranting about whatever they're ranting about. And then so then I start, thinking about baking cupcakes or something. Because you have to take your brain out of the situation. If you don't do that, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to start arguing back with them right away, right? That's what I do. I think of something happy. You like going fishing, think about going fishing. You love your dog, think about your dog. Think about something else. And then once you take yourself out, and then you take yourself back in, and then you calm down. Always lower your tone, right? Number one thing. When they're arguing, don't try to be louder than them. Pause and lower your voice. That shuts them down very fast. So when you're in that situation, just think about doing something, come back, and then lower your tone.
Yes, I love that. Find your Zen place and then respond.
Wherever that is, the beach,
whatever that place is, go to that place and then come back and then respond and breathe.
Absolutely. Diane said breathe, yes, and breathe.
Absolutely.
I'll see that in the Trevor Noah ones. I'll send you that one. It's really interesting. When they studied how Trevor Noah was speaking, he took a deep breath, he paused, and then he responded.
Yeah, there's something about that breathing and taking a deep breath and then responding that's so powerful. It's kind of like you're reclaiming that energy that you may have lost because of what was said.
It makes you speak slower. Like if you notice that you take a deep breath in and you're trying to speak, it makes you speak slower.
Yeah.
So it's easier to engage.
Slows you down. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Thank you for that. The next question that I got is, which I thought is another good question, is how do you balance being a leader and not forgetting about yourself, especially when you're a leader at work and within your family? So different roles that you play as a leader.
It's really hard. Carve time out for yourself. I learned this through, I don't know if many of you know, I just got my doctorate. Last year, so I spent the last 4 years of my life, like last 2 during the pandemic, getting this job and doing all that. What I learned is scheduling. Schedule your me time, because if you don't schedule your me time, you won't get it. And the nice thing about scheduling it is that you get it. Like my me time is every Saturday, right? My Saturdays are my days. Husband goes fishing, who does whatever he wants, I do whatever I want, right? But I don't do homework, I don't do work. Carve it out for yourself, but that means you have to schedule everything else around it. So that's your me day, and you don't turn on your computer, you don't do those things. So that's how you strike balance, whether it's 1 day or 2 days, depending on your schedule. Make it consistent. Putting your me days in your planner. Don't plan anything, put your me day in, okay? And to do what you like to do. Sleep in if you like, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial. And I hope everyone takes this with you if folks are already currently in a professional role, or if you're just full-time college student, or, you're transitioning, carving out that me time now and getting in the practice of doing it is such an important habit to have now. If you put it in practice now and prioritizing yourself, then it'll be non-negotiable when your hours start to get limited. You're going to still be like, this is something I have to do. If Sundays are your day for you, then nothing else can come, on that day. So if you practice it now, I think it's a good habit to start.
Because my homework was always due Monday at midnight. So my Sundays were my homework days, but my Saturdays were my play days.
Yes. And for me, my Sundays are my days where I'm like, it's just me. It's just me. So thank you for that. Another question that we got, Chelsy, was, let me pull it up here. Have you ever been confronted with a situation where being a woman has caused others to undermine your leadership?
All the time.
If so, how did you overcome the situation?
So being a woman and then being a woman of Asian descent in my occupation all goes against me, right? Being an Asian woman, right? So I go to trade shows, no one talks to me because they don't think that I do anything or I'm just there for drinks, I'm not sure, right? So no one ever approaches me, which is nice because I don't get solicited. But at the same time, I go to the airport and people ask for my citizenship papers and they don't think I speak English, right? You get used to it, which is not a good thing. But in other words, they just go, well, they just don't know, and you just put your emotional intelligence hat on and move on with your day because you can't change them. They're not part of your team. They're only with you. Only see them for 2 seconds, and I do face that, right? So in IT, right, no one would believe that I'm an IT director just by looking at my face. And they would judge it, right? They would judge you. And if I said something, if I said your password text expired in 30 days, people will question me. But if you put an older gentleman on and he says that, he's a figure of authority. So you still have to get through that. There's still those challenges. No matter how many times people tell you that's not a challenge, it is a reality. And it's not a reality unless you are a woman of color or a person of color, or even, some people who are not, they still face those challenges, right?
Right.
And so it's just a self-confidence thing. You have to be confident in who you are. And that's not easy because you're knocked down all the time. But that's okay. You just, you find your place and you're at a higher place.
Yeah.
Keep your head above theirs.
Right. And always go high when they go low. Go high.
Right. And you only meet them for like 5 seconds. They're not anything in your life, so who cares?
Right.
Kind of, one of my past presidents in my organization. So I used to put on these big dinner parties for like 250,000 people, and no matter what we do, people are always upset. Some people was unhappy about the fish or not happy about the lighting, and the president came down and he saw how upset my team was, and he's like, there's 5% of the population you just write off because they won't understand. And don't worry about them. Don't let them waste your time.
Yeah. You're always going to have haters. Right?
Mm-hmm.
My response is I always let my work speak for itself.
That's right.
And if I let my work speak for itself, that usually shuts down anything else. So my advice to everyone is, you're doing the work and it's speaking for itself, it shuts down a lot of people.
And just have the self-confidence. It's okay. You're a woman. It's okay. Whatever occupation you're in that you're not supposed to be in, supposedly by the norm, whatever the norm is, right? It's all right.
That was a great question. Thank you, Chelsy, for that response. Great response too. Okay, so somebody had asked if we will be offering a leadership course on our campus. As of now, we don't have a leadership course, but if this is something that you all are interested in, as students, you guys can advocate for having a leadership course if you feel this is necessary, and so that's the great thing about being students. We see that there's over 100 students who are participating in today's leadership series. Could this eventually turn into something that we do as a course, potentially in the future? Right now, unfortunately, we don't have a specific course designated to it, but that's something that could be happen in the future. Did you want to add anything, Chelsy?
No, that sounds good as a course, but there's always mentorship. There's always speeches. TED Talks are great. I go out and do, to further growth yourself. Just go look around too.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I echo all of that. Another question we had, Hold on, give me a second here. Everyone liked your PowerPoint. They wanted to know if you could share it, which we will. We will. I told everyone we will. Let me see. Someone had asked, how can a leader use their position to not power over? How can they create intimacy without intimidation? Because if they command, they use the analogy like a silverback gorilla, it leaves little space for others to express their feelings.
So using your position not to command is make the initial connection. And it's most important when you're going into a new team. So get to know them one-on-one. That's very important because there's two ways of looking at a position. A position is just the position, it doesn't belong to you. If you're outside that position is still there. There's this great speech about an admiral about a styrofoam cup, but that's for another discussion. But really, you want to make that connection and build the trust beforehand. And you want to use, I don't like the use of authority. A leader's here so you can mark the vision. So you can say, let's move in this direction. Have people like, oh, okay, kind of agree with you. Some of them kind of agree with you. Some of them don't. Some of them do. But over time, you'll gain that trust. It's about building that trust and that connection. Once you build the trust, then your followers will work blood, sweat, and tears for you. But if you don't have the trust, they're doing it just for the paycheck. They're like that Noah at Caesar's palace. Yeah.
I really like that video and that analogy they use because it really painted a picture for the experience that you can have and how drastic it was of those experiences that we've all probably experienced. We've all probably had a boss that really didn't care about us or may have talked down to us. And I know maybe Chelsy, you can maybe speak to this in how you were able to manage that. And I know for me personally, I learned from it what I didn't want to be, the kind of boss I didn't want to be. And so for me, it was a growing experience. Like if I become a manager, I don't want to do A, B, C, and D. So I actually got a chance to grow and learn from it and evolve and take things away that helped me grow as a leader. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so what I try to do, I was in that challenging situation, and my whole goal is how do I get them on my side? How do I get them to believe in me? Is to try to turn that around because when I was in a similar situation like that is, because when I was a woman, I was in a very male-dominated industry, right? And so you just have to kind of prove your worth at that point and then see if you can turn it around. If you can't, if no matter what you tried for a year or two or whatever, the period of time that you want to determine, if you can't turn them around and then have them believe in you and trust in you, then it's your opportunity to go change the channel.
I like that. Their opportunity to change the channel.
That's right.
Turn the page.
Get up. You have to get up though. There's no remote for that. You got to get up. It takes work.
Yep, it does take work. Thank you. Someone had asked, how do you deal with someone who you are leading, but has a higher degree than you? Has a higher degree than you, or a higher title, or just feel superior to you, so they do not follow your leadership or are upset because you're leading them or gives you a hard time in general?
Well, that person needs to grow. But for yourself, try to see how you can interact with that person. I don't believe that anyone gets up and tries to do a bad job. Everybody wakes up, you don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to do a bad job today. You don't go to class and say, I'm going to suck today. That's never anyone's intention. But if someone comes off that way, it's because they're not confident in their own skills or where they're at, or not satisfied with where they're at. Once try to build a connection, don't go there. Don't try to distance yourself from them, and don't try to not talk to them, because I think that they need that one-on-one talk with you. Try to schedule some time with that person, and say, hey, just your first meeting, don't talk about work. Make it personal. Make the connection first. Because when you build the trust, it's a lot different. people with different degrees, different education levels, you know, it means a lot and it doesn't mean a lot, you know. So it depends on the person and your background, your skill set, what you bring to the team.
Right. I think I saw this picture of Barack Obama, and he was, I forgot, I don't know exactly where he was at, but he was bumping fists with like the janitor. And he knew that person's name. And I thought that was so impactful in that, you know, titles and everything, if you're a good leader, that stuff doesn't really matter. What matters is the person.
Right. Because to me, titles are just job positions. I do a different job. Andrew does a different job, right? Than I do. You know, Kai does a different job. But we all do different jobs. But it's a job, right? And then we're all people at the end of the day.
We're all people at the end of the day. And that's, as leaders, that's what we focus on, is the person. And being empathetic to the person, which you had shared in the presentation as well, which I really liked. Okay, so it looks like we're coming down to, I guess, one of our last questions. And Anna, if I'm missing any, let me know. I'm trying to track all of them. How do you deal with people who are resistant to changes?
That's my question, right? So either there's like a chart that you would see about change, how people are accepting of change and how people are not. Sometimes that they'll accept it if you tell them the reason why. Sometimes there's no why for a change, and that makes it very hard. If it's a change that you can explain the why, then it'll make them, maybe they'll buy it, maybe they'll be the number two, maybe they'll be compliant, but not really, you know, committed, right? You want them to be committed. And then you have to also realize that there are some people who will never be committed and they will always say no. Because they're the type that they don't like change, or that goes against their system, their belief system, their worldview. Everybody has a worldview, right? And you can convince them to change, and you can convince them to not. So that's their own personal choice. As long as you've given them the tools and the opportunity, then that person needs to make that choice. And if the world is changing, if the train left the station and they're not on it, then they're not on it. You can try, you can invite them, send them an invitation, you know, can't hold them, but.
Right, at some point, it's still gonna keep moving, even without you. So
as a leader, you want to make that commitment. You want to try to get them to be, you're trying to influence them, right? Because that's your power. Your superpower as a leader is influence. So you're trying to influence them to get them there. You know, and then if I could add, you know, one last thing to our day is, don't be afraid of failure. Because if you didn't fail, you won't succeed. And you have to know, like the light bulb, you know how many times it was done before there was a light bulb? If you read the story about Dyson, he probably made 1,000 vacuum cleaners before he came up with the one. And like Angry Birds, everybody loved to play it. But did you know that was that company's like 900th game? That wasn't their first game that they made. So, you know, so keep trying. Don't be afraid of failing. You know, my thing is try it. At least you know that didn't work. Fail fast and keep going.
Yep. Pivot. Pivot. Keep going.
Kyle, and we pivot, and yeah, you're disappointed, but that's okay. Get over
it. And I think that's a strength as a leader too, is not taking it personally and to keep moving, and knowing that some things might come a little bit slower, but to keep still pressing forward. So I appreciate you saying that. Let me see. Is there any other last?
There is one question left that I don't know if we asked. It's actually one of my personal favorite questions. Or what are some books you recommend for reading and leadership?
So there's the Teams of Teams, and I'll get the titles to Shayla. There's a couple of them. There's one about Zappos. It's like the WOW experience or something. I'll get a list to Shayla with the authors and links to them too.
Perfect. And I see this will be my last question, team, in the chat here, which is, what is the position of a leader when a team member has better skills than him or her? Can a leader feel jealous? What happens with leaders who felt in competition with their team members?
Well, if I have lots of team members who have better skill sets than me. I am so happy because I can't do those things that they do. And one of the first things I came to my team, and I can't do your job. I really can't. Don't ask me to sit and program anything, right? Don't ask me to fix a computer because I know about them, right? But don't ask me to sit there and open it up and do things, because that's not my gig. And a leader has to know that your team is built on the skill set that you do not have. You're there to have the overall, the vision, get them there, influence them, support them in what they do, right? A leader shouldn't be jealous that someone's better. The leader should be very proud and try to actually grow that person, because that person can be the next you. Right. And then you can move on to do something else, right? Do whatever you want to do. Unless you want to have that job for the next 50 years, then maybe you don't want anyone to be better than you. But my thing as a leader is you want them to grow and you want you to grow. And if you feel the leaders is jealous of you, and maybe because they don't understand you, take this step and schedule a meeting with them and just talk. But don't talk about work at first, just talk. Get to know them. Get to know their story.
Get to know them on the personal level.
Like, what's the story? Because they got there for some reason, like, you know, tell me about your family, tell me your background, how'd you get here, and talk about your journey, wherever your journey may be.
Right. I love that you said that too, Chelsy, and that, you know, goes back to that mentorship and pouring into people. As a leader, you have an opportunity to pour into people and give them the skills to build themselves up. Like, that is a great opportunity. You're helping someone else grow. And I think it excites me when I think about it. I'm like, I want to grow and I want to give other opportunities for others to grow. And I think that is just a great skill set to have, and changing your mindset so you're not jealous, or it's not a competition. There's room for all of us at the table.
Right. And you should be happy. It's like, you know, to me, it's like watching your kid walk for the first time. It's like, oh my God, that's so cool. When my team comes up with something, I'm like, it's cool, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go.
Absolutely. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did it say?
Makes you proud.
Makes you proud. Exactly. It makes you absolutely proud. So I want to take a moment to thank you for doing this, Chelsy. I'm looking at some of the comments and everyone is blown away. Some people are like, the leadership class. So that might be in your future. You know, I'm just putting it out there. But I am going to pass the mic over to Anna, who's going to close this out. But before I do want to mention that ASDC, the Associated Students of Delta College, is having elections. We still have openings if you're interested in leading on our campus as a student leader. I'm going to pop it in the chat. Applications close on April 9th. So any of you who may be interested in really developing your leadership skills, consider applying. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Miss Anna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chelsy.
Thank you guys for attending today. Dr. Chelsy Pham, thank you so much for being here with us. Everyone enjoyed it. If you can see the chat right now, everyone's saying thank you, that you should bring the course to Delta. So I enjoyed it, and I know the students enjoyed it very much. So we want to thank you. We do have our next workshop next Tuesday. If you have registered for the series, you will be receiving an email. As Shayla mentioned, ASDC elections were extended until April 9th. So please apply if you are interested in leadership, especially at Delta. We definitely encourage it. And if you guys ever have questions about ASDC, feel free to reach out to Shayla or to any of the ASDC officers, and they can provide that information to you. Also, if you called in, please send me an email. I want to make sure that you receive credit for today's workshop. With that being said, thank you guys for showing up and being present, and all the amazing questions that you guys asked. And once again, Dr. Chelsy Pham, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. See you guys next week. Have a good rest of your Tuesday.
Enjoy your day off tomorrow. Don't do any schoolwork.
Thank you.